Yes, 500 years ago, Christians were burning people from other religions. Even before that, they went to the Holy Land to kill Muslims. The Inquisition burned people at the stake, tortured them and all that. But of course, that was 500 years ago. Transformations in Christianity, Reformation to other things. That nowadays you don't find that, despite some fanaticism of some sects of Christianity. Do you think Islam needs to go through that historical process to be able to avoid these extreme actions?
Yes, I think Islam is actually going through that process at the moment. So don't forget the Prophet Muhammad appeared, was born almost 6 centuries after Christ. So Islam is a lot younger religion and community. The Islamic calendar is around its 15th century. So when people often say to me that much of Islam looks very medieval, I say it is actually. We are literally in our 15th century. And that's why you see fanatical mobs burning, building, and even people. There have been many lynchings of non-Muslims, of Christians, of Jews, of Hindus, but also of other Muslims who were accused of blasphemy or belonging to the wrong sect, attacks between Sunnis and Shiites. Now, all this awful behaviour goes on, and much of it does look very barbaric and very medieval. And I think it's simply because that Islam hasn't had that time that Christianity has. Inquisition, you mentioned that word. Many Muslim intellectuals will say around the world that in Muslim countries they face an Inquisition-like atmosphere, where they're not allowed to speak openly about religion or to question the traditional religious authorities and their dogma and say, well, how about this? Maybe this doesn't make sense. They're immediately branded heretics and apostates and face the death penalty and the blasphemy laws, etc., etc. I myself have faced that in this country. I was forced out of my mosque after 25 years of serving and preaching there. And a professor, a Muslim professor from the Emirates, called it a Muslim Inquisition, the situation I was subjected to, and he said it was actually very common right across the Muslim world. So people do ask whether Islam needs a reformation. I believe Islam is actually going through a reformation at the moment. I mean, the Christian Reformation took a couple of centuries, right? You could argue that from the late 19th century or early 20th century, there has been a process of reformation. And if you look at the Islamic intellectual discourse around the world, it is actually very active. So while you do have strong militant voices in movements and radical groups, you also have a very strong flowering of Islamic intellectuality and spirituality.